Problem solving involves several competencies and skills, from logically structuring problems and asking the right questions, through to analysis and synthesis. The knowledge economy we operate in requires us to become adept at a variety of problem-solving tools. The success or failure of organizations, and consequently our career, largely depends on our ability to solve problems so as to make informed decisions. Hi, I'm Nikos Rosidis, CEO, management consultant, and author. This channel is devoted to raising your managerial competence, and each episode covers a core skill or competence. Not all problems require deliberate consideration. In my episodes on how we make choices and how cognitive biases often come into play, I talk about the difference between System 1 and System 2 thinking. We can apply common sense and simple heuristics when the problems we need to solve are fairly straightforward. Tapping into System 1 thinking, which is automatic, fast, and experience-based. But in certain classes of problems, where the degree of complexity is considerable and where the stakes are high, a deliberate and more time-consuming problem-solving approach is more appropriate. This is what Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman refers to as System 2. This mode of thinking applies to non-routine situations, where the first and foremost task is to carefully define and then break down the problem.
The problem appears to be unsolvable. Maybe we could run some computer simulations.
There are too many variables. It would take forever.
We've got to be missing something. Let's start again. The movie is playing here at 7:20, here at 7:40, here at 8:10, and here at 8:45.
But setting aside complexity for a moment, and how it can confound us even in fairly banal situations. Like Sheldon and his friends choosing a cinema to go to, what is vitally important is to make sure that we're tackling the right problem. And that often means making the right causal inferences. Some classes of problems may be fairly straightforward. That's when we try to choose among a clear set of alternative options. But when causal relationships are involved, we need to apply solid reasoning, often supported by prior knowledge and experience. In fact, there's nothing more counterproductive in management than working on the wrong problem, as when we confuse symptoms for causes. For example, we may conflate a lack of productivity with laziness, as opposed to insufficient clarity around processes or required resources. Or we may think that the lack of revenue growth is due to insufficient sales efforts, when the real problem may be the lack of product market fit. The second step is to structure the problem, and I've already shared McKinsey's framework for doing this. Breaking down the problem so that the groupings are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. This typically involves carefully examining the context, personalities, organizational dynamics, politics, after which we analyze, synthesize, and evaluate the information or any evidence we have. We critically evaluate how strong and valid are different points of view, including any weaknesses or negative aspects in the evidence or argument. And we triangulate when necessary to examine an issue from different vantage points and data sources, by using a variety of methods, as I've argued in my short episode on the topic. Throughout the process, we ask questions such as: what evidence do we have? How do we know that it is valid? How reliable are our data sources? Are we likely to be unconsciously biased? From what angle or perspective are we viewing the arguments? As we go through this process, our capacity to think critically is key, asking vital questions, testing assumptions, and drawing well-reasoned conclusions. And as we do that, we need to test our conclusions against relative criteria, and by considering alternative perspectives, carefully examine the implications and consequences. So long for now, and see you in the next episode.